All right, so get ready to break down some serious NBA action with me. February 26, 2025. Woof! This was a night with a little bit of everything.
Yeah, this was one for the books.
We had some wild upsets.
Some crazy comebacks.
And honestly, some big-time players showed up.
Some big performances for sure.
We're going to break down 5 games in our deep dive today.
Okay, let's do it.
Starting with the Rockets and the Spurs. Then we've got the Kings battling the Jazz, the Clippers squeaking by the Bulls, and then, well, get this, the Thunder make an insane comeback against the Nets.
Oh, yeah, I can't forget that one.
And then to wrap things up, the Heat are going to take on the Hawks. Sound good?
Let's get into it.
So the Rockets versus the Spurs. The Rockets won a 118-106.
Right.
But it wasn't just a win. I mean, this was a statement game.
I agree.
You know how we always hear those analysts saying, like, control the tempo,
Right.
and this is what it looks like.
The Rockets just completely took over the pace of the game, yeah.
And it was mainly, like, you talk about controlling the boards. Yeah, for sure.
They weren't just winning the rebound battle.
Right.
They dominated.
They were all over the offensive glass. They got so many second-chance points. I mean, every time the Spurs thought they had gotten a stop, there was another Rocket tipping it out or grabbing an offensive rebound.
It just demoralizes you as a team, I feel like.
Definitely.
And on top of that, Jalen Green, 28 points.
That's right.
Alperen Sengun had a double-double. 22 points, 12 boards.
They were cooking.
Now, Victor Wembanyama for the Spurs, he still put up a very, respectable stat line, 24 points, 10 rebounds.
Absolutely.
I think this game, though, just shows how much the Rockets just dominated the paint.
Yeah, he's a fantastic talent.
I mean, the guy is...
Obviously, the hype is real.
Yeah.
But even his talent couldn't really overcome, the fact that the Rockets were just so much stronger inside.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the Kings and the Jazz. This one ended 118-101.
A nice, comfortable win for Sacramento.
Convincing win for the Kings.
This was like a coming-out party for Keegan Murray.
Absolutely. I think he kind of announced himself to the league in a way.
Season high 26 points.
It wasn't just a hot shooting night either. Like, he was taking good shots. He was moving well without the ball. You can just tell that his game is maturing. He's getting more confident. I think this is going to be, maybe a turning point for him in terms of his development.
Yeah, a lot of people are excited about him.
Oh, yeah.
And for good reason.
For sure.
And Zach LaVine chipped in with 22 for the Kings, showing, he can be a consistent scorer for them.
Absolutely, yeah. He's Mr. Reliable.
And as a team, they shot 52.9%.
Yeah, that's not going to happen every night, but it's nice when it does.
Now, the Jazz,
right.
I do have to say, they were missing Lauri Markkanen and John Collins.
Yes, that is a big caveat.
So that obviously impacted their ability to keep up with the Kings scoring.
Yeah, I mean, you take 2 of your best players out of any team, it's going to hurt. So it'll be interesting to see how they, adapt without those guys, at least for the short term, see if they can kind of, hold down the fort until they get back.
Yeah, because that could send them into a spiral.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to go to a game that had, the casual fans probably biting their nails a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Clippers versus the Bulls. This one ended 122-117. Clippers barely pull out the W.
Yeah, a close one. I mean, honestly, the score makes it look closer than it was for a lot of it, but the Clippers were clutch.
James Harden was lights out.
Oh, my goodness, he was feeling it.
7 3-pointers, finished with 30.
Especially down the stretch. I mean, that fourth quarter, he just took over. Like, he was in that zone where you just knew the ball was going in as soon as it left his hands.
And we also saw the return of Kawhi Leonard.
Oh, yeah. How about that?
He came back from injury.
It was good to see him back on the court.
17 points, 8 rebounds. I mean, that's pretty good.
For a guy who's just coming off an injury, absolutely. It's always a question mark. How's a player going to look when they first come back? And he didn't miss a beat.
Now, Zach Collins for the Bulls. He had 21 and 17.
Right.
But the Clippers, man, they were just hitting everything down the stretch.
They were.
Like every shot they took.
Yeah, those last few minutes, they were unconscious.
All right, so this next game, this is the game of the night for me.
Oh, tell me about it.
This is the comeback story that will be talked about, at least for the next couple days.
For sure. It was an instant classic.
The Thunder and the Nets. 129-121. The Thunder win this one. But it was a roller coaster.
It was not easy.
Okay, so the Thunder go on an 18-0 run in the fourth.
Yeah, they just flipped a switch. It was like, a different team came out of the locker room after the third quarter.
The momentum was unreal.
You could feel it, like building with every possession. They were getting stops on defense, and they were just like flowing on offense. It was beautiful to watch.
I bet you could feel it if you were at the game.
Oh, yeah. The energy in that arena must have been incredible. You can hear it even on TV, but in person, that had to be something special.
So Aaron Wiggins led the scoring for the Thunder. He had 24.
Yep.
Jalen Williams had 22.
Yeah, those two, they were huge down the stretch. They really stepped up when the team needed them most.
Now, on the Nets side, Day'Ron Sharpe had a career-high 25 points.
Yeah, he was a bright spot for them. He played great.
It just wasn't enough
Yeah,
to overcome that Thunder comeback.
they ran into a buzzsaw. I mean, you have to give the Thunder credit. They played with so much heart and, just determination in that second half.
Yeah. All right, last game of the night. We got the Heat versus the Hawks.
All right, wrap it up.
This one was a blowout, 131-109. Heat take this one pretty handily.
Yeah, the Heat were just like a machine in this game. They were clicking on all cylinders. I mean, offense was flowing, their defense was stifling. The Hawks just had no answer for them.
Tyler Hero, he led all scorers with 32.
Right, he was hot.
And Andrew Wiggins added another 23.
Yeah, they were firing on all cylinders. I mean, it was like pick your poison with those guys. If you try to stop Harrow, then Wiggins is going to get you. It was impressive to watch.
Now, the Hawks struggled.
They did. They just couldn't buy a bucket, it felt like. Their defense was struggling to contain the Heat. And, even Trae Young, he had 28 points, but it was a tough night for him.
Yeah, he just didn't seem to have that same spark.
Yeah, he was forcing things a little bit. You could tell the Heat's defense was getting to him.
When you look at all these games, what I find really interesting is just the variety of play styles.
Oh, absolutely.
We saw teams that relied on their defense to win, others that won with their offense. We had those grinded-out, low-scoring affairs, and then we had those high-flying shootouts. It just goes to show how dynamic the league is right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's no one formula for success in the NBA. There are so many different ways to win, and that's what makes it so exciting to follow. You've got teams that like to slow it down and play in the half court. Then you've got teams that want to run and gun, push the pace. It's a really fun time to be an NBA
And
fan.
it feels like anything can happen on any given night.
You never know who's going to come out on top. I think that's great for the league. It keeps things unpredictable. You can't just assume that the top teams are going to roll over everybody. Every game is a battle.
It's the parity.
Exactly. And it keeps things interesting. You really got to tune in every night because you never know what you're going to see. It's crazy, right? Like you look at the standings and there aren't really any truly dominant teams. Anyone can beat anyone on a given night, it seems like.
Yeah, the league feels really balanced right now.
Yeah, it makes it more fun to watch, You're on the edge of your seat every night because you don't know what's going to happen.
Definitely. And then, you look at some of the individual performances from last night. It feels like maybe a changing of the guard a little bit.
I think so, too.
Some of these young guys, they're not just, role players anymore. They're stepping up. They're taking on bigger roles.
Keegan Murray with the Kings, for example. I mean, he was awesome, just took over the game. I think we're seeing a star in the making there.
Day'Ron Sharpe, career high, 25 points for the Nets.
Even in a loss, he balled out. It's like these guys are ready for their moment. They're ready to take over.
Yeah. And, speaking of taking over, how about those Rockets on the boards?
Oh, man, it was a clinic.
It was a clinic on how to control a game through rebounding.
It's not always the most exciting thing to watch, but man, it's effective.
I mean, they were relentless. Every time the Spurs thought they'd gotten a stop, boom, another Rocket with the offensive rebound.
It's got to be demoralizing as the other team.
Totally.
Like, when are they going to miss?
You just feel deflated.
Yeah. It's just like, a constant reminder that you can't relax, you can't let up for a second. And that wears you down, not just physically, but mentally, too.
Oh, yeah. Now, on the flip side, you've got teams like the Heat. I mean, they just dismantled the Hawks.
That was a beatdown.
Their offense was incredible. They were sharing the ball, making shots. And then on defense, they were just suffocating the Hawks.
That's the thing about the Heat. They're just so well-rounded. They can beat you in so many ways. And when they're on like that, it's scary. They look like a real contender.
Yeah, and I feel like, with the Clippers, we saw flashes of that from them, especially in those clutch moments against the Bulls. But it still feels like they're figuring things out.
Yeah, they haven't quite hit their stride yet, but I think they will. You got Kawhi back now. Harden is playing well. There's a lot of talent on that team. They just need to find that consistency.
And then you look at the Jazz. They're dealing with those injuries to Mark Cannon and Collins.
Right, and those are big losses for them.
It'll be interesting to see how they respond. Can they hold it down until those guys get back?
It's a good test for them, a good test of their depth, their resilience. You find out a lot about a team when they face adversity like that.
You see what they're really made of. Now, speaking of resilience, can we talk about that Thunder comeback against the Nets?
Oh, man, that was amazing. A gutsy performance.
Like, where did that come from?
Mhm.
I mean, down double digits, and then bam, they flip a switch and just, like, take over the game.
I think it shows their mental toughness. They could have easily folded when they were down big, but they didn't. They kept fighting and they kept believing. And eventually, it paid off. And that's what I love about this league. You get these storylines, these moments that you just don't see coming. And that Thunder comeback was definitely one of them.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, are we going to see more of that from them going forward? Can they build on this?
That's the big question, right? Was this a one-off, or is this a sign of things to come? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I think that game definitely put the league on notice that the Thunder are not a team to sleep on. They've got some talented young players, and like we said, they got that fight, that never give up attitude.
Definitely. Now, we talk a lot about players and their performances. We talk about the big plays. But what about the coaches?
Oh, the coaches, they're the unsung heroes. The guys behind the scenes calling the plays, making adjustments, motivating the players.
Yeah, we don't always give them enough credit.
I mean, they're so important. They set the tone for the whole team.
They create the culture, they come up with the game plan.
And they have to make those tough decisions, you know? Who plays, who sits, what plays to run, when to call timeouts. It's a lot of pressure. It's a tough job. And they don't always get it right. But when they do, man, it makes a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about, like, OKC, right? The Thunder. They're a young team, but they play with so much poise, especially in that comeback against the Nets. You can tell they have a system. They trust their coach.
Yeah, they don't panic.
They don't fold under pressure.
When things get tough, they don't just start playing hero ball, every man for himself.
Right.
They stick to the plan, they trust each other, and they execute.
And that comes from the coaching. That's the culture that the coach sets.
Absolutely. A good coach can take a team with talent and make them great. A bad coach can take a team with talent and, well, we've seen that happen too.
Yeah, there are definitely some teams out there where, you look at the roster and you're like, man, they should be so much better.
Right, like on paper they look amazing, but then they get on the court and it's just like a mess.
And, sometimes that's coaching. It's the lack of a clear system
Yeah.
or the inability to make adjustments, or maybe it's just not the right fit for the personnel.
And those are the things that I think are really interesting to watch as the season goes on. Like, which coaches are going to be able to push the right buttons, make the right adjustments, who can adapt to different situations, different opponents. That's what separates the good coaches from the great ones.
So as you're watching games, I really encourage you to think about those coaching decisions. Pay attention to the rotations, the timeouts, the play calls. It can really give you a deeper appreciation for the game.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the highlight plays and the big moments, but the little things, the details, that's where you really see the impact of coaching.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our deep dive into February 26th. We saw some wild games.
Some great performance.
The emergence of some young stars.
Some coaching masterclasses.
And hey, it's only February.
It's just getting started. The best is yet to come.
So make sure you keep tuning in because, the NBA never disappoints. There's always something exciting happening.
Always something to talk about, that's for sure.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll catch you next time.